And we're going to talk a little bit about input, output, and variables in C#. So this should just give you a basic introduction to how C# programs work, so you can get started. So I'm using Visual C# 2010 Express, you're using 2012, everything works pretty much the same. So I want to click on New Project here, and then I'm going to choose a console application, and I'm going to call this console application input, output, variables, and I'll hit OK here, and this should set up my my new solution, or my new project here. And this will just take a minute while it gets this created. Okay, and here we go. And of course, I probably want to rename this CS program in here, input output variables, to match. So I will rename, and I'll just call it something like iov.cs, for input output variables. Okay, and yes, we'd like to rename everything in there. Now, for convenience sake, I've done a bunch of stuff here for this project already, and I've got it in a file that I'm just going to drag in here and open inside. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put basically the list of things that we're going to do. But if I want them into my the program that I'm actually working on, I have to copy and paste them here. So I'm going to copy all of this stuff in here, go over to this one over here that I'm actually working in, and paste it in. And I'm going to copy this header file as well, and I'll just put it right there. So now we can look at what the comments say here. Now the comments in C#, notice that we can have it start with a single slash and then a star, and then end with a star and then a slash. That creates a comment. The other way we can create a comment is to have two slashes. You can see in all these green lines here, start with two slashes. So what are we going to do here? This program will get the user to enter two numbers, perform some arithmetic operations on the numbers, and output the results. It will also show an example of a for loop. Okay, so first thing we want to do here is we want to declare our variables. So we're going to declare some things like a string variable. So we do string, and let's have the name. This will be for the name here. And we're going to need some numbers for some variables for the numbers. So we'll just call them num1 and num2. And these will be integers right now. So notice in C# that we put the type before the name of the variable. And what are we going to do? We're going to do some arithmetic operations. So let's get some variables here to hold the sum and the product, and I don't know, let's do the quotient as well. Quote for quotient. Okay, so we've got some variables declared. Next up, we want to greet the user and prompt them to enter their name. So to get some output in C#, we want to use the keyword console.writeLine. Okay, so console.writeLine writes a line of text out to the console, which is what we're programming in, and in brackets and then in quotation marks we want to put the string that we're going to output. And we have to end every line here with a semicolon. So we're going to output welcome, and then we'll output, so console.writeLine. Well, actually we use console.write here. Console.writeLine puts an end of line, so it goes down to the next line after it does its output. Console.write will stay on the same line. So we'll do please enter your name. Now we'll do a quotation, a little colon there, and then we'll close it off. Okay, so console.write, please enter your name, will output please enter your name, and then stay on the same line. Then we want to read in the name. So in Turing we use the keyword get to read in things from the keyboard. In C# we want to use console.read read a line. So that reads in a line of text from the console, and we want to store this in a variable, so we're going to store this in the variable name. So what we do is we do name equals console.readLine. This will read in a line from the console and store it in the variable name. And notice we just use the straight equals sign, not the colon equals, like we were doing all the time in Turing. So once we've got the person's name in, we're going to get them to enter two numbers and read them in. So we're going to do console.WriteLine. And what are we going to have them do? Well, we're going to have them please enter two numbers. Now, if we want their name to appear, we'll put the semicolon in it then. If we want their name to appear right here in this string, we put these little squiggly braces and then a 0 in there. And the 0 refers to a variable that we're going to put at the end here. So we do comma, and then we do the variable name. So what it does is it takes the first variable that it sees at the end here, name, looks at the value that's in it and replaces this funny little 0 with the curly braces with whatever is inside that variable. And then we will give them a prompt here to actually enter the numbers. So console.write, it's console.write, and we'll just say number 1 colon, alright, because then it'll stay on the same line. And we want to read in that number after they type it in. So we've got to do console.read line to read in the line. Now, this is where it gets tricky. We want to store this, the results from reading in this line from the console, in the variable num1. So we do num equals. Console.readLine always reads in a string. Whatever it gets from that line, it converts it into a string. So we want to change it from a string into an integer so we can store it in num1. So to do that, we have to use a command called int.parse. And then we put console.readLine in brackets. So it takes what it reads in from console.readLine, changes it into an integer, and stores it in num1. And now we have to do the same thing for number 2. So I'm going to copy and paste for number 2 here, and we'll say num2 again is int.parse console.readLine. Now we want to just do our calculations here. So we are going to say sum equals these two numbers added together, num1 plus num2. We can do the product. Remember, it's just equals, not colon equals. Num1 times num2. And let's try the quotient here. Quotient equals num1 divided by num2. Okay. And then let's output the results. Okay, in sentences here. So we're going to do, again, console.WriteLine, and notice that it gives me suggestions here. If I put my mouse on this like this, I can choose console.WriteLine. It'll autocomplete for me. Okay, and let's do the sum of, and we want to put the numbers in these sentences here. So if I go 0 in funny brackets 1 is like this. Now, instead of just the 0, I've got a 0, a 1, and a 2 in those funny brackets. That means I need to have 3 variables here at the end. The first variable that I put here will go where the 0 is, so I'm going to put num1, num2, and then I want to output the sum, so that'll be sum. Okay. So, now I've done a bunch of stuff here. Let's run this and see if it works. So I'm going to click this green arrow that I have up here, and this succeeded, and now it's running, and I'll sort of drag this in here so you can see it. So it says, please enter your name. My name is Bob. Please enter 2 numbers. My first number is going to be 5. My second number is going to be 6. The sum of 5 and 6 is 11. And then it says, press any key to exit. And it says that because down here in my code, I have added this little bit at the bottom, console.WriteLine, press any key to exit, and then it waits until you hit any key, and that's the console.read key true. So let's add our 2 more sentences here for our other 2 operations. So I'm just going to copy and paste Copy and paste. The two other things that I did were the product. So let's do product of, again, num1 and num2 is, replace sum here with product. The sum, the third one I did was the quotient of 0 and 1 is, and we'll do QOT. Okay. And you might have noticed a problem here. Num1 and num2 are integers, and then I'm doing division between two integers, and I'm trying to store the result back in quote QUOT, which is, again, another integer variable. Turing wouldn't let you do this, but let's see what happens when we run this in C#. Okay, I'll move this over a little bit here. So please enter your name. My name is Doug. Please enter two numbers. Let's try 35 and let's do 78. So the sum of them is 113. The product is 2,730. The quotient is 0. What's going on there? Let's run this again. And we'll do two numbers where we sort of know what the answer is supposed to be. So I'll just DO, let's see. So we know that if we divide 10 and 3, we should get 3.33. So we'll do 10 and 3. The quotient of 10 and 3 is just 3. What C# has done here is it has said, it has done its division, and then it's taken its answer, and because it needs to be an integer, it's gotten rid of the decimal part of it. So if we want this to do this division properly, we have to make sure that these variables up here are not integer variables, but the equivalent of real variables. And there are two things we can use in C#. We can use what's called a float for a floating point variable, or we can use doubles, which are double precision floating point variables. So if we run this now with that quote variable as a double, let's see what happens. My name is Sue. Let's do 34, and let's divide this by 19. The quotient of 34 and 19 is 1. Interesting. It's still not doing this division the way we want it to. Okay. So let's hit any key to enter. So let's see what happens if we make int a number doubles as well. Sorry, our input numbers. And then let's run it. Again, please enter your name. We'll go back to Bob here. We'll do 24 divided by 20, and there we get 1.2. So now we're actually getting those decimals in there. So all the numbers involved in that division step have to be doubles. And to be completely correct here, back when we read in num1 and num2, we should change this int.parse to double.parse. So that'll read in our numbers from the keyboard and convert them into doubles for us. Okay, the last thing we want to do is use a for loop to have them enter more numbers. Okay, so what we can do is, this is just to get you going on for loops here. For loop has a similar structure to what it has in C. We do for, and then we need a variable, our counting variable, so we'll call this, we have to actually declare it here with int, and when we declare it, we have to give it a value. Int I equals 1. So this is going to start at 1, and then it's going to go until I is less than or equal to 3. So it's going to go as long as I is less than or equal to 3. So it'll go as long as I is 1, 2, 3, and then once I gets to 4, it'll stop. And then the command to increase I by 1 every time through the loop is I++. This is what's called the increment operator. Okay? So everything that we want repeated then goes between a set of these curly brackets. So anything I put inside here will get repeated. So I don't need an end for at the end of this. So let's just add here that, add a comment. This means, okay, so what have we done here in that line above? We have declared I, and set it to 1. Then we will loop as long as I is less than or, and that's a lot of O's in or, and or equal to 3, and it's going to increase I by 1 each time through loop. Okay. So what do we want to do inside this loop? We'll just have them, I don't know, enter 3 numbers here. So we'll do console.writeLine, and we can add some blank space here using these escape characters. So /n/n. This will give us a couple of blank lines. Enter number between each one, and then and what number do we want them to enter? Well, we'll just say enter number I. So what this plus I is going to do here is it's going to add a string with the value of I onto the end of this output statement. And down here we'll do a console.readLine of what we entered in here. And where do we want to save this? Well, we'll save it in num1 because we need to save it somewhere. But if we're going to do that, we have to do a double dot parse on what we got here. So double dot parse this, and let's run this. So this should repeat this whole thing, ask us just to get 3 more numbers in at the end here. So enter our name, slide this over a bit here first. This is Bob. Enter a number here, so my number is going to be 23, my other number is going to be 190, and you can see it gives the decimal there. Now here it's asking me to enter number 1, so number 1, I don't know, 34, number 2, and sure enough we see that this loop repeats 3 times, and then we get to the end of the program. So that is input, some basic calculations, some output, and the simplest kind of loop that you can see in C#.